I decided to go on live today because there are things that I want to share as we are leading into our ancestral arts ceremony. And that is my ideas about why art is ceremony, why we can make art a ceremony. So I'm just going to talk a little bit. If you have like questions or comments, I would love to hear them, see them. I'm not sure if I'm going to actually see them live, but I would love to read them later then. um, so I'm just going to start by saying that as a creator, when we are an artist, we are creating basically something out of thin air. No, we are making something completely new that wasn't there before. And I feel that this act of creation actually deserves ceremony. It deserves a special space. It deserves to be recognized as something truly transformational. We are creating transformation when we make art. We are tapping into this energy of the divine. We can, if we really open ourselves to become a channel. And we, in a way, have to trust because we're stepping into the unknown and we are making art. We cannot guarantee the outcome. And especially in the way that I make art, and especially in the way that I teach art making, I share with the world and with my students, we go into a space where we allow things to unravel and to unfold in their own way. And for that to happen, I believe it can be really, really beneficial to actually create a specific space around it, just like we talked yesterday with Koryanka about like creating a space where we step out of everyday life. So when I am making art, I am stepping out of my everyday life and I'm putting on my consciousness of being a creator. And I feel like this is really, really an important point to kind of consider and to really feel into. We become someone who is creating something that wasn't there before. And that creation changes our inside. So, in a way, when we make art, we automatically go into a place where we start with like who I am today. And then I go into this process of creating and I get out at the end as a different person, as someone who has created this thing. Whether I like it or not, whether, I'm going to show it to people, whether it's going to land in the gallery, someone's going to buy it, all of this doesn't matter. I am someone who created this thing. And I feel like this can really allow us to step up into this reality and take this kind of consciousness of being creators into other parts of our lives. Now, what I really love about making art a ceremony is that we can really, in a way, follow this pathway of the ceremony where we have an opening space, we open the space, we start with a conscious decision to create something. And most of the time, we start inside of us. We start with an intention, we start with a question, we start with a vision, maybe. Start with an idea, we start with something that happens inside of us, and we listen to whatever happens inside of us. And then we decide to explore it. So for me, art is always an exploration, especially like the way I work with it. It's never that I know what comes out at the end, no matter what I do. If I work with no graphic or if I work with other things, it's always like this exploration of I have this idea and it kind of interests me and I try out things and I start doing a thing and then it changes into something else. So in a way, what I invite into my art always is this unknown. As an artist, we can step into the unknown in a very conscious way. As an artist, we can connect with energies outside of us or energies that are deep inside of us, like the ancestors, for example, no, however, like we kind of understand them. And we can become a channel for energies to flow through us. We can become a channel for the divine, and we need to trust. I feel that that is a really, really crucial and important point in art because most of the time I have experienced that at some point there's something happening where I look at it and I'm like, I don't know, I don't know. So it's really this trusting that this is where it has to go. And for me, what almost always happens in my art is that I meet places where it feels uncomfortable. I meet places where I meet my inner critic, for example. I meet places where I am going into internal work. So this is for me inherent in art making is that I'm meeting myself and that I am looking at myself from a new perspective, that I'm getting to know myself deeper. And this is where transformation again comes in, where I can make space for this kind of realizing, for example, when I have self-limiting thoughts or, when my inner critic has something to say, by seeing that, by listening to that and pausing and being like, oh, I hear this inner voice there, and then kind of investigating that and seeing where does this take me, why is it there, like what's the story of it, and how am I going to deal with it, what am I going to do with these critics, for example, that come up, with this voice inside of me that doesn't like what I'm doing and that's like judging it and that's judging me in total, and that says I shouldn't be an artist to begin with. So that is really where I change by listening to these voices. I can build a new structure of myself, I almost want to say. Because first of all, I realize that I do have all these beliefs and all these voices that come up inside of me. And then I can decide to either like not listen to them, to make other voices inside me stronger, to I don't know, act on it in some way, to react in some way. So it is really where we can become conscious of what's happening inside of us. And I see that all the time with my students, that we create something and it's really just for the creation, and still there's so much happening inside. There's this whole dialogue that's happening inside, and this I find is the important part. No, this is where transformation happens. This is where you see yourself in a new way. This is where art transforms you. I say that again. Art transforms you. Now you become someone different through your art. This is why I believe that art is really, for me, a part of ceremony. For me, every time I make art, I try to sit first, and maybe I want to speak a little bit about that, about like how to approach it, because I feel that when we want to make art a ceremony, we can kind of create the space, and it doesn't have to be an elaborate thing. We don't have to, I don't know, smudge our whole room and have a huge altar and, I don't know, like, say a prayers or something like that. We can of course do that, but we can also just sit with ourselves and start inside and really feel into the space that we create for the art inside of us, because we're opening our heart to it. We're opening ourselves to be changed in the process. We're opening ourselves to become creators. So here's really where the intention comes in. Why am I actually doing this? And that's a really interesting question, because, of course, there is this image of, or like this idea of, we're creating art for the outside world to be seen for other people. But is that really so? Does that really, really grasp, or is that really, really the core intention of our art? I always feel that the core intention of my art is for me to see myself. This is why I find it, yeah, very, very important to come back to art. especially when we go through transformational processes to begin with, when we are in really, really hard parts of our lives. I have done that a lot when I was in my dark night of the soul grief. I came back to art and I made space for it. I made space for this inner process of really processing what's going on inside of me. So, just like we can in a ceremony, we can release, we can heal, we can create, we can manifest, we can like do all these different things. We can also do all of that with art. I can release the energy that I carry inside of me through my art, and then it can transform into something different. We have that in the neurographica process a lot, where we just like have this cathartic release of the energy, and then we make something out of it. Then we change it into something else. Then it really like starts becoming. Well, then it starts like um, almost creating itself. Like this is a sensation that I often have. Like I'm watching my hand do the thing, and I'm like, oh wow, this is interesting. Like, oh, we're going there. Okay. So it's really a kind of trusting the process. The way I understand art is very, very much in the process. We want to step into this process. So this is where my ceremony happens. No, this is what's happening inside this space that I create for myself. I am in a process, and I can go deep into processes too. I have been in processes that take several days. Everyone who's been watching my introductory video, that was one of the processes that took several days, and I did nothing else. I made art. And luckily, I had a husband that fed me through it. But yeah, so the art making can really take us deep into ourselves and can take us to places that we haven't been before. So it's really this conversation with the unknown inside of us, but also with the unknown outside of us. And we're kind of bringing it together, and we are creating something. So the ending is in our process that we have this document of our process. I really like kind of like to call my art pieces like they're the document of my inner change. There is like this proof that I've been there, this proof that I've gone through this process. And we materialize a piece. We materialize something that we take out of the process then. And this is what I really love about art as a ceremony, because we take something out of the ceremony that stays and that carries this energy. It is really like almost like a talisman, we can think of. It is a piece that is layered with the energy and is layered with the intention and is layered with all the different parts of myself that I touched in the process. They are all layered in the piece whenever it's quote unquote finished. Some pieces are like taking longer, and some pieces may still change in the future. So that's also something that I really, really love, that um, we can come back to it. We can come back to the process. We can come back to an old piece and look at it and go back into this ceremonial space with it. So the art piece itself is a holder of this energy, is a holder of this frequency, and is a holder of the meaning that I bring into this process, the meaning of um whatever like my process was. If it's a healing process, then it may remind me of what realizations I had. It may remind me of the things that I want to do. It may remind me of the changes that I want to make. So really, when we think of transformation not as a moment where like something happens and then it's all different, but a process, a longer kind of journey that unfolds in the process, then I always feel that art is a really, really beautiful representation of that. Because art reminds us like where we came from this kind of like blank canvas in a way. And then we move into creation. And then when we get out of it, we are sitting there with this peace. And I really love to end with a kind of just sitting with it and being with my peace in like a gratitude state. So we also talked about that with Priyanka yesterday, like ending the ceremony in gratitude is really like closing it up again as well. So this is something that I really recommend when we do ancestral art, which I want to talk to just a little bit too, is to close the process because especially when we invite ancestral energies, we invite them like to become present with us. No matter like how we understand that, if they're like ethereal energies that come from somewhere, if we connect to nature, if we connect to our body, we're opening gates to like other dimensions, to other realms. And then we go into the art process, and these, if we want to think of them as energy, as entities, like whatever kind of feels right for you, they are part of the process. They are in the space and they will, of course, influence what comes out. This is like a really, really interesting thing with making art with the ancestors. This is why I, understand it as I'm actually making art with them. I'm making art for them. It's not really about them. It's not like they're somewhere else and I'm just like making this picture about my grandma. No, I am communing with my grandma when I make a picture for her, of her, and it like her energy expresses through me. This is kind of like what I feel when I work with the specific ancestral piece in my art. And then so I express all these things and all these different kind of layers come out. No, and maybe there's some things that I've realized need healing. Maybe there's some things that I haven't seen before that I've realized that something inside of me carries this energy from my lineage, for example. Or, I understand like something about me. This is like what happens to me a lot. Like I'm like, oh wow, this makes perfect sense. And now as a mother, it has another kind of layer for me because now I can decide, do I want to pass this on? What am I going to do with all the information that I receive? And then whenever I feel complete, I want to complete the process and give thanks to the energies that are invited and also close the space again. I have had one experience that I just really briefly want to share where we did ancestral art piece actually in an art class. It was in the Graphica program that I went through, the Ancestral Mandala. And I opened the channel, and in that class, there was no opening and closing. It was just, okay, now we're making this drawing. So I had the craziest dreams. I had visions. I was like in an altered state for several days until I realized I have to close this door because I had like I never did that before. I had like opened the gate to like all this ancestral knowing that kind of poured through me. And I really I had dreams, I had visions, I had body sensations. I was like not really functioning well in everyday life because I was still in the other space, but I didn't know it. So after realizing that, I found that when we make ancestral art, when we make art as specific for and with and through the ancestor, with the ancestral energies, when we invite these energies into our art, we need to create this safe space. We need to make sure that there's a beginning and then that there's an ending. And it can look in many different ways. Maybe we want to light a candle to start with and just kind of invite them and touch, kind of feel into ourselves. I feel like the most important part is always connecting with yourself. And then at the end, we want to say thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for showing me whatever I saw, whatever messages I received. And then we want to release the energies again and kind of clear our space so that we can go back into normal life as a normal everyday person that is not like surrounded by all her ancestors. I mean, like sometimes that can also be helpful. But for me personally, it was very overwhelming. So I just wanted to kind of share that because I feel that, especially for people that are just opening the gate, if you're like kind of not used to this kind of work, then it's really, really helpful to know that you want to close it again or that you can close it again. Maybe you don't want to, that's also fine. Maybe you feel really, really good with the ancestors around and they want to hang out, and that's all possible too. But if you want to really kind of find this closing, it's very, very helpful to intentionally do that. And it's just, the same, like just connecting with yourself again, connecting with the energies around you, and um, releasing it, releasing whatever can be released, releasing whatever wants to be released, releasing, so that the energies don't linger, because lingering energies are often not fun. Okay, now I'm kind of feeling into if I have anything else to say. I think this was the journey that I had. I would love to hear from people, like what experiences they have with the art, just as a normal everyday thing, maybe, or with the art as a ceremony. Like, do you celebrate your art like this? Do you create a specific space? I feel like with art making, it's so nice because we have the materials, we set up the space. I don't usually make art when like a room is completely messy. I want to have like a space set up. And this for me is part of the ceremony. I kind of clean it first and I make it nice and I create the time and the space for it. And then I go into the process. And then that's when really things can come up. That's when I feel like I am open enough to receive as well. Because when we're all cluttered and when there's like all this kind of stuff happening around us, then we might not be open to receive whatever wants to come through us. No, we might not be able to receive the messages that our art has for us. So yeah, so I would love to hear any comments about that. And I hope that you will join us for the live ancestral art ceremony, where we will have a beautiful introduction, a beautiful opening prayer by Kriyanka, and then some movement, and then we'll create a drawing with me, and then we'll reflect a little bit on it, and then we'll have sound and music, and it's going to be beautiful. I promise you that. So I hope to see you soon, and also tomorrow we'll have another short conversation with my friend Amy, who is leading the Kindred meditation. Kindred meditation is, if you have never heard of this before, please try it. It's a beautiful meditation that works with movement. And it's not like full body movement. We like when we sit, we only use our arms, so anybody can do it sitting, and it's really just feeling into the energy. And I find that this is a perfect preparation for our art piece, because we're opening the channel, we're kind of moving our body a little bit, and then we can go into creating, kind of feeling what wants to come through. So I hope that you will join me and Amy tomorrow on our Instagram, so that, yeah, we can share a little bit about that. And yeah, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Stay creative, and today really kind of make a little bit space for yourself and just check in and just take a deep breath. Mm. Mm. Good.